Five specific things that believers do during a waiting season that the enemy is counting on you never stopping. Not 5 things that make you a bad Christian. Not 5 things that make God love you less. 5 things that are silently extending your delay, silently widening the gap between where you are and where God is trying to take you, silently giving the enemy access to a season that was supposed to be building you, but is currently breaking you instead. And here is what makes this conversation dangerous for the kingdom of darkness. Most believers doing these 5 things have absolutely no idea they are doing them. They think they are coping. They think they are being realistic. They think they are protecting themselves from more disappointment. But in the spirit realm, in the invisible world operating around your life right now, what looks like coping from the outside looks like an open door from the inside. And the enemy walks through open doors every single time. Before we get to number 1, I need to show you something from Scripture that is going to frame everything else in this video. Daniel 10:12. An angel appears to Daniel after 21 days of fasting and prayer and says, "From the first day that thou didst set thine heart to understand, thy words were heard." Day 1. Heaven responded to Daniel's prayer on the very first day he prayed. But Daniel did not receive the answer until day 21, and the angel explains why in verse 13. "But the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days." Organized, strategic, deliberate spiritual opposition in the realm between heaven and earth held Daniel's answer in suspension for 3 weeks. Now here is the question that unlocks this entire video. What was the enemy doing to Daniel during those 21 days while the angel was fighting through? Because he was not sitting idle. He never sits idle. And the 5 things I am about to show you, every single one of them, is a weapon the enemy deploys against believers, specifically during the waiting season. Because if he cannot stop the answer, he will try to destroy the person waiting for it. Let us start with number 1. Number 1. Lowering your expectation gradually. And before you move past this one thinking it does not apply to you, stay here for a moment, because this is the sneakiest attack on this entire list. The most dangerous moment in a waiting season is not the beginning. It is not when the delay first starts and the disappointment is fresh and the pain is sharp. It is the moment, weeks or months or years into the wait, when waiting becomes familiar, when you have adjusted your expectations so quietly, so gradually, so naturally, that one day you look up and realize you have stopped expecting anything to change, and you do not even remember making that decision. This is the enemy's most sophisticated weapon against believers in a waiting season. Not a dramatic attack, not a visible assault, just erosion. 10% less expectation every week, until the person who once prayed with fire and absolute certainty is now going through the motions of prayer without any real belief that anything will shift. Hebrews 10:35. "Cast not away therefore your confidence, which hath great recompense of reward." Cast not away your confidence. Notice it does not say, do not lose your confidence dramatically. It says, do not cast it away. Casting is a deliberate action, a choice made, sometimes unconsciously, to release something you were holding. And every time you lower your expectation during the wait, every time you tell yourself, maybe God did not really mean that, or maybe I misheard, or maybe that promise was for someone else, you are casting away the very thing that Hebrews says carries great recompense of reward. The reward is attached to the confidence, which means every time you lower the confidence, you are moving further from the reward. And here is what is happening in the spirit realm when you do this. The opposition that has been holding your answer in suspension feels the pressure reduce. Because your faith, your genuine, active, expectant faith, is part of the spiritual force pressing against the opposition between heaven and your situation. The moment you lower that pressure, the opposition strengthens. Not because God weakened, but because you did. That is number 1. Now number 2 is where it gets personal. Number 2. Talking to the wrong people about your promise. During a waiting season, the temptation to talk is overwhelming, because the weight is heavy, and heavy things feel easier to carry when they are shared. But here is what the spirit realm reveals about who you share your promise with during a delay. Not everyone who loves you is spiritually equipped to carry the weight of what God told you, and not everyone who asks about your situation is asking because they are genuinely on your side. Genesis 37, Joseph received a dream from God, a clear, specific, prophetic promise about his future, and he told his brothers. Verse 8, "And his brethren said to him, Shalt thou indeed reign over us? And they hated him yet the more for his dreams and for his words." The dream did not change when Joseph shared it, but the atmosphere around the dream changed immediately, and within a few verses, the brothers were plotting to kill him, not because the dream was false, because it was true, and the people he shared it with were not spiritually positioned to celebrate a promise that elevated him above where they were. Now here is the spirit realm principle hiding in Joseph's story. When you share a divine promise with the wrong person, you do not just risk their negative reaction, you open a spiritual door, because doubt spoken over a promise in the natural realm has an effect in the spirit realm. Words carry weight in the invisible world. Proverbs 18:21. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. Not metaphorically, not poetically. Death and life. And when someone you trust speaks doubt over what God told you, even casually, even with good intentions, even wrapped in concern, that doubt lands somewhere. And the enemy uses it. This is why Proverbs 17:28 says, "Even a fool when he holdeth his peace is counted wise." There are seasons where the most spiritually powerful thing you can do with your promise is guard it in silence. Let your next move be the first announcement. Let your testimony be the first time most people hear what God was doing. That is number 2. And now we arrive at number 3. This is the one I told you about at the beginning. This is the one that is silently destroying believers in waiting seasons right now. Pay close attention. Number 3. Stopping your worship. And I want to be precise here because there is a difference between stopping worship and stopping the activity of worship. Most believers in a long waiting season are still going to church, still singing the songs, still lifting their hands during the service, but they have stopped worshiping. There is a difference between going through the motions of worship and actually releasing worship as a spiritual weapon into the atmosphere of your situation. And that difference is felt in the spirit realm even when it is completely invisible in the natural. Acts 16 verse 25. Paul and Silas are in prison, beaten with rods, feet locked in stocks, in the darkest, most delayed, most impossible moment of their entire assignment. At midnight, they sang praises, not in the morning when things looked better, not after someone came to encourage them, not when they finally felt like it. At midnight, in the worst moment, in the deepest darkness, in the place where no natural evidence suggested anything was about to change. And verse 26, "And suddenly there was a great earthquake, and immediately all the doors were opened, and everyone's bands were loosed." The worship did not just encourage Paul and Silas emotionally, it literally opened prison doors in the physical world. Now here is what most believers completely miss about that moment. Psalm 22:3, "But thou art holy, O thou that inhabitest the praises of Israel." God does not just hear praise. He does not just appreciate praise. He inhabits it. He takes up residence in the atmosphere that genuine worship creates. Which means when you worship during your delay, you are not just expressing how you feel about God. You are literally changing the spiritual atmosphere of your waiting season. You are creating an environment where God's presence increases. And where God's presence increases, opposition cannot maintain the same strength. But here is exactly what the enemy has done to most believers in a prolonged waiting season. He has made worship feel empty. He has made the songs feel hollow. The words feel mechanical. The lifting of hands feel like performance rather than warfare. And one by one, believers in waiting seasons have put down the most powerful weapon they carry because they stopped feeling it working, not understanding that worship is not a feeling, it is a force. And the moment you stop releasing that force during your delay, the spiritual atmosphere of your situation shifts. Darkness fills what praise used to occupy, and the delay that worship was breaking open closes back around you. That is number 3. And now number 4 is one that nobody wants to admit they are doing. Number 4. Comparing your season to someone else's. This one is quiet, subtle, and more spiritually destructive than most believers want to acknowledge, because it does not feel dangerous. It feels completely human. You watch someone else receive the very thing you have been praying for. The pregnancy announcement, the business breakthrough, the marriage, the healing, the promotion, and something happens inside you that is not quite bitterness, but is not quite celebration either. something that makes you return to your own situation with slightly less faith than you had before you saw theirs. And the enemy takes that feeling and turns it into a question. If God did it for them, why not me? And that question, left unanswered, left growing in the dark, slowly becomes a verdict. Maybe God does not have that for me. Galatians 6:4. But let every man prove his own work, and then shall he have rejoicing in himself alone, and not in another. Your assignment is not their assignment. Your timeline is not their timeline. And what God is building in you during your specific delay, the specific preparation, the specific expansion of your capacity, cannot be measured against anyone else's story, because your promise was not designed for anyone else's vessel. It was designed specifically for yours. And here is what happens in the spirit realm when you begin measuring your delay against someone else's breakthrough. You begin to disconnect from your own specific promise. You begin praying for what they received instead of what God actually spoke to you. And a prayer that is not aligned with your specific promise does not carry the same spiritual authority. The enemy knows this, which is exactly why he makes sure that during your most intense waiting season, someone around you always seems to be receiving their answer. It is not coincidence. It is strategy. Do not fall for it. That is number 4. Now number 5. This is the final one, and it connects directly back to Daniel and what the spirit realm reveals about your prayer during the delay. Number 5. Reducing your prayer life during the delay. Go back to Daniel 10 one final time. The angel tells Daniel, "From the first day thy words were heard, and then the prince of Persia withstood me 21 days. And then, verse 12, I am come for thy words." I am come for thy words. The angel did not say, "I am come because you prayed long enough." He did not say, "I am come because you finally found the right prayer." He said, "I am come for thy words." The specific words Daniel prayed, the specific consistent daily consecration of 21 days, the specific pressure of persistent prayer applied consistently against the spiritual opposition between heaven and his situation. That is what brought the angel through. Now here is the spiritual warfare truth hiding in that verse. Your prayer during the waiting season is not just communication with God. It is force in the spirit realm. It is spiritual pressure being applied against the opposition holding your answer in suspension. And the moment that pressure is reduced, the opposition does not reduce with it. It stays exactly as strong as it was, which means every day you pray less during the delay. The gap between the force you are applying and the force holding your answer back widens. Luke 18:1. And he spake a parable unto them to this end, that men ought always to pray and not to faint. Always to pray and not to faint. The Greek word for faint here is ekakeo, meaning to lose heart, to grow weary, to give up from exhaustion. Jesus was not addressing people who never prayed. He was addressing people who prayed genuinely and faithfully, and then reached a point in the waiting season where the exhaustion of unanswered prayer became heavier than the faith to keep pressing. And he said, "Do not stop there, because the fainting is the attack." The enemy does not need to stop your answer. He just needs to make you too tired to pray through the last few days before it arrives. Daniel prayed for 21 days. The angel broke through on day 21. What if your breakthrough is on day 21, and you stopped on day 19? That is number 5. Now I need to show you the other side of everything we have just covered, because we have talked about 5 things the enemy is doing against you during the delay. But what is God doing simultaneously? Because the spirit realm is not only a battlefield, it is also a preparation room. Go back to Daniel 10 one final time. While the angel was fighting through 21 days of opposition to reach Daniel, God was using every single one of those 21 days to prepare Daniel to receive what was coming. Verse 10. A hand touched Daniel when he fell. Verse 11. He was called greatly beloved. Verse 12. He was told his prayer was heard on day 1. Verse 18. The angel touched him again and strengthened him. Verse 19. O man greatly beloved, fear not. Peace be unto thee. Be strong, yea, be strong. Every stage of Daniel's weakness in the wait, every moment of his depletion, was met by a specific, intentional, deeply personal act of God. God was not watching Daniel struggle from a distance. He was present in every specific moment of the delay. And what he was building in Daniel during those 21 days was not just patience. He was building the capacity to receive a vision so vast, so overwhelming, so beyond what Daniel's pre-delay self could have carried, that even after the angel strengthened him, Daniel still trembled at the magnitude of what arrived. The delay was not God withholding from Daniel. It was God expanding Daniel. And here is the question I need you to carry from this video into the rest of your waiting season. What if the current version of you is not yet large enough to carry what God is about to release? What if the delay is not punishment? What if it is not abandonment? What if it is the most precise, most personalized, most loving act of preparation God could offer you, before releasing the thing that will require everything you have become during the wait to sustain? Habakkuk 2:3. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come, it will not tarry. It will surely come, not might come, not could come, if you do everything right from this point forward. Surely come. The appointed time was set before your delay started, before you prayed the first prayer, before you felt the first disappointment, before the first day of the wait that felt like God had gone completely silent. It was already appointed, and appointed things arrive on schedule. Not your schedule, God's schedule. So here is what I need you to do with these 5 things we covered today. Do not carry them as condemnation, carry them as intelligence. Because now you know exactly what the enemy has been doing during your delay. You can close the doors he has been using. Raise your expectation back to what God said on day 1. Guard your promise with intentional silence around the wrong people. Pick worship back up as the weapon it was always designed to be. Remove your eyes from other people's timelines and fix them back on your specific promise. And press back into prayer with the understanding that every word you pray is applying spiritual pressure against the opposition between heaven and your answer. Daniel prayed for 21 days. The angel broke through on day 21. Your day 21 is coming. Do not stop before it arrives. Now, before you leave this video, I want you to do something right now. Type in the comments, "I will not stop before day 21." Declare it out loud, and if you know someone in a waiting season right now, send this video to them today. Subscribe, like, and turn on notifications, because in the next video, we are going even deeper.